what he said, what she said, what they said.
Hey everyone, welcome back. I'm Cash Money,
And I'm Pat.
and this is Gender Talk. So we're gonna get right back into it where we left off after coming back from the break, because I was around the world in 30 days and I needed to recover because the sister was tired.
Yeah.
So if you're following in order, Pat just kind of got me to go deep on the inside and get into my spirituality and my energies and talk about some deep stuff, but it was good. So we're gonna keep on going because he got more questions and hopefully I got more answers.
Yeah. So let's see. Do you think that you can connect? Do you think, because I know you know, so I'm not even going to ask that question because I was going to ask you, do you think energy can connect, right? Do you think you can connect with the energy of another person? I already know you do believe that. Do you think energy can be shared through distance and through communication and through uh just the like we have genuine love for each other. Like we've been knowing each other what 20 years now.
20 plus.
Yeah.
20 plus.
So it's genuine love. This is my sister. I mean, the things we've experienced together. But do you think that the people don't I think what am I trying to say? It's a disconnect. So let me just start talking. Okay, I'll just start talking. So I feel it's a disconnect of people not thinking that they're connecting with other people's energy, right? And they think they're just we just out here being people and we're not energetic beings and we don't share that type stuff, right? So I also feel that everything
Oh
happens
my.
for you. Hmm?
Yes, I was gonna say, oh no, them some misguided people if they believe that.
Yeah.
uh, we talk, people talk about it in romantic relationships and they call them soul ties. But
Mm-hmm.
there's soul ties in other ways or connect the energy. And I'll give you an example. The most basic thing, um, communication via email, text, or chat.
Mm-hmm.
When you read something and you like, oh, that person energy is off, or
Mm-hmm.
that's in the you're connecting. You might not be physically connecting, but you're
Mm-hmm.
still connecting. And you could, if you're to, and I say this, you're tuned in. Me and you and others have talked about this before. And I've said this. I feel like one of my God-given talents is the ability to understand energies, like when I come in contact people or different things, and it's just like, not that I'm a medium or anything, but just to shift, like to know if a person isn't necessarily right,
Mm-hmm.
and I could be like, oh, their energy off. I
Mm-hmm.
might not necessarily know why initially, but
Mm-hmm.
it's almost like my conscience heightening, or my
Mm-hmm.
conscience on a heightened level to say, oh no, their energy's off, move different around them than you would. And eventually it reveals itself. It's so absolutely,
Mm-hmm.
you don't have to be physically touching connected to a person
Mm-hmm.
to feel a shift in energy, especially if your energy is grounded and you've centered and protected your energy and you're in a place of peace that surpasses our understanding, or if you're moving through your spiritual energy and healing and all of that, you
Mm-hmm.
absolutely can feel the shift of somebody else's energy and around you. Um, Energy is neither destroyed; it's transformed from person to person or state to state.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's my nerdy spiel for the day. Um, Scientific, physics and everything, but absolutely you can feel energy
So
without physically touching somebody.
we're touching someone. Okay. You think that we have a responsibility since we understand those of us that understand energy are looking to it or know that we have those types of connections. Are we responsible for the emotions and the energy and managing those things around us for other people? Since we know that we're aware of these things, because a lot of people aren't, right? And a lot of people, even within your orbit, aren't aware of their energies. Is it our
Do
responsibility?
I don't I think it's I think if you, okay, here's the humanitarian in me, always wanting to educate people and them learn. I think absolutely we can educate, but again, you have no control over that person in orbit and the shift and change in energy, no more than you have any control over whether they want to go out and rob a store, take
Mhm,
somebody's life, drive a car drunk.
mhm,
Even back to the spirituality of it, God gives us free will to make choices. It's the
mhm,
same thing. No, I mean, we can only inform and guide, but ultimately, what somebody does with their energy and whether they want to shift their energy is on them. But as somebody that's aware of energy, as I talk to my oldest child, we talk about setting boundaries. You don't just
mhm,
have to set boundaries in the physical, but you have to set emotional and spiritual boundaries and energy boundaries. If you know somebody ain't in the right space and has the right energy for you, I don't need to be around you. Let me remove myself. I'm not going to force them to remove themselves. But if I'm aware, because part of energy and spirituality is being self aware, if
mhm,
I'm self aware, I have an
mhm.
obligation to myself to
Ah,
protect my energy and remove myself.
okay.
You
Now,
know, the concept we say you can love people from a distance. I can love you, but I don't have to talk to you. Or when women sometimes say, I love you, but I'm not in love with you. And they like, well, what does that mean? I can love you from a distance and never talk to you again. I
mm,
can set my boundaries and educate and provide knowledge to you on my energy, but I don't have to physically allow you in my space to
mhm.
disrupt my energy.
Does protecting your energy though always look like removing yourself?
Um, it depends on the type of energy that's displayed. So of
Mm,
course we're probably talking about bad energy and a shift in energy. And then that's the thing, you have to be self-aware. Is this a growing pain? Is this a lesson? Is
mm.
this something I'm supposed to encounter on my spiritual journey? Um,
Well,
I think you
I
have to have that discernment. So I mean, no, it doesn't necessarily always mean removing yourself, or just you just know sometimes it's not engaging too, you
the
know.
one there's one thing I wanted to point out though. For me, it hasn't always been bad energy, and I'll give an example, or I'll give the truth. I was on a meeting one time. It was a spiritual meeting, and I recognized that my energy was off, and it was going to bring the meeting down. Do you get what I'm saying? Even though I was feeling I was in high vibration, I was in high energy, my energy was right. My
Right.
energy wasn't right for that group, that situation. So
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't that it was low, it wasn't that it was negative, or maybe my energy could have been the negative energy, but I did have to remove myself, right, on something that was good. So I don't think it's always removing ourselves or changing bad energy, right? Sometimes it's removing ourselves or bringing ourselves into a situation um for a more positive outcome, right?
Right.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. How has it been? Oh, this is a good one since you talked about around the world in 30 days. Was there a point on your trips, um, where you decided to tap into your spiritual energy and see how you were feeling spiritually? And if so,
Actually, yes.
okay.
So one of the destinations, for those of you that may follow me on social media or not, was in Rome, Italy. So, in Italy, and I'm not Catholic, but there is Vatican City, where the Pope is and everything, the basilica churches, all of that.
Mhm.
Um, Getting to walk around and tour, the Sistine Chapel and all those places, to read about and see stuff in books is one thing, but to be physically there, um, I'm not gonna say it was an out of body experience, but it was very surreal
Mm.
and serene and peaceful and calming. Like walking in the chapel, you couldn't really talk, but to look up, you couldn't take pictures in the Sistine Chapel. So if you ever go, you can't take pictures.
Mhm.
But to walk in there and to see the depiction of the Bible on the ceiling and to see that it's still there and
Mm.
to look at all that stuff and just to be like, wow. Um, it was. And then to go outside and see where the Pope delivers all of his speeches, where normally it's thousands of people there receiving the blessings of the Pope and everything. It's like, wow. Again, I'm not Catholic, but it made me for a second actually pause and smell the roses and take in the presence and say, okay, this is what
Yeah, I get
free.
it. That's well, I want to go to Mecca for that one reason, right? To be able to experience that. I mean, we experience it at different places and at different levels, and you can definitely experience it within yourself, right? Because that's that peace beyond all understanding, right there. Um,
Absolutely, just to be
that's
like,
that's one of the reasons I go to Mecca. I'll go to you know, what you just say,
Vatican City
Vatican City, and then going to the
inside
pyramid.
of Rome. So yeah, if you're not aware,
Yeah.
Vatican City is its own government owned city. Even though it's inside of Rome, Italy, it's its own city. It has its own government, its own jurisdiction. They police themselves.
Mm.
So like we were in the street and he were like, okay, you're in Rome. You're about to go to Vatican City. And now you're about to go to Rome. Just stepping over a piece of pavement. So I thought that was kind of neat to, if you're not from somewhere where you experience a city inside of another city.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, it was really interesting. I would actually like to go back to Italy. Um, just to be able to spend some more time. It was a jam-packed trip, but just to
Hmm.
be able to take in some more of the historic stuff that you read about if you were in school, Julius Caesar and the Roman Empire and mythology and
Hmm.
all of that. It was, yeah, even though I'm far removed from what I learned in middle school, high school, and everything, just to be able to, okay, kind of bring it back full circle and okay, this is good. Um, yeah, I would like to go back as one of the places on my list of countries to go back to
Mm.
or to
Okay.
visit. Yeah.
Well, it's good. What did you What did you get from your excursion to the mountains of Tennessee? What did
Ooh,
what?
ooh.
Because hey, this Tennessee is my home country. It's my love land.
Well, my that's my grandfather, and that's where my grandfather is from, and all his family.
Yeah.
Um, it that was peaceful to be up above and just to look out
Yeah.
and see nothing but mountains of trees
Yeah.
and and then the sun come up. Again, not trying to sound cliche, but it really was. If you grew up in the city and you used to nothing but city life and the hustle and the bustle of a busy city, New York, LA, Chicago, Atlanta, Houston, Dallas, Miami, Orlando, big cities. If you're not, people travel now, but a lot of people don't travel to, I'm gonna say country, but country land. And if you don't have relatives, it's not something that's at the top of your list to do.
Right.
Um, Again, it was a busy trip. And of
Mm-hmm.
course I had my kids with me. So it really wasn't as peaceful as I would have liked it to be in, but to go out, you know, looking out, going out in the day and just seeing that. And then at night when there were fireworks and just to look and like, oh, it's dark. Just to know it's dark and then the sun is gonna come up again. It was a different kind of peaceful from the spiritual peacefulness of Italy, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it makes total sense because I went from a spiritual center in Atlanta, where in Cohen Park, the Cohen Park Pavilion is actually built on top of some indigenous mounds, right?
Mm-hmm.
We went there having this day at a time celebration and feeling the spirituality and energy there to going back to Tuskegee, right? I got a chance to go back to the place where my young adulthood started, my adulthood started.
Change everybody's lives, didn't it?
Hey man, you know what? And you know what the beauty of it was? It was everyone that has been to Tuskegee has experienced this, where it feels like it's just you on campus. Like,
Yeah.
and then you're able to take in the whole like atmosphere. Like, even though I just drove through, it was totally quiet. Like, it was literally nothing going on.
You could block out the noise of
Yeah.
everything.
And I could feel Tuskegee. I could feel how it was when my first day there. You know what I'm saying? I could feel the excitement of the football games. I could feel the energy that's there, right? And it was
And
beautiful.
not to cut you off, but to go back to you are describing what I was talking about
Yeah.
in the prior episode about being triggered and
Yeah.
saying that sometimes being triggered is not a bad thing. It's a memory and you're triggered a certain emotion in response. You're
Hmm.
describing being triggered in a memory taking you back down to this feeling where you are now re-immersed in when I first got here.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah.
So yeah, that was a trigger in a good way because we're
Yeah.
talking about energies and things are
Yeah. Yeah.
not always negative.
Yeah.
So I just wanted
It,
to point that out.
it was beautiful, but I hadn't seen it since I left in 2004, not for real, right? So seeing the new facades on the buildings, seeing how, it really,
The addition of buildings, the landscape,
the
and
addition of buildings, right? The addition of buildings, the better landscaping. It looks like, you know, even though it was being taken care of when we were there, it looks like it's really being taken care of now. You know what I mean? And it looks like our
it's being
class,
maintained and upkeep and maintained. Yes.
right, right, and it's actually important to upkeep and maintain, right? Before, and I think we did that, a couple of classes before us, and then us really, and then after us has really brought the spotlight to Tuskegee in the sense of put money back in. Because I know my parents' generation, yeah, they got the degrees and all that, but they wasn't from the mid from the mid 70s to early late 90s. Wasn't nobody putting money back in any of the HBCUs,
No, they
right?
probably wasn't in a position to, and now they are.
Now
And
they
they
are,
growth,
right?
and that's the thing, getting to a space where that's important and understanding what that is. And I think that's something we could segue into
Mhm.
with the changing climate of the environment, and the US has birthed some of that, to where things are becoming record emissions, record donations
Mhm.
into those things. It sparked a new interest where it was only a certain few that, yeah, if you wasn't in this town or with this group, you wasn't aware that, like some people, as they say on social media sometimes, and I know we're taking a turn here. Oh, well, why does these same schools always get the donations? It's always Spelman, Morehouse, and Howard and FAMU. And it's like, well, those are the ones that are out there advocating for their schools.
Right.
Everybody else has to advocate for your school. You want the recognition. But now, the COVID year and everybody on TV and Deion Sanders going to Jackson, that kind of sparked a fire under and put a bigger spotlight on stuff that wasn't, hey, it's more than just these. You have 101 HBCUs you can choose from. We're going to go ahead and switch back. So you were talking about energy and Tuskegee. Of course, we know that's the best HBCU ever, but
right. But let's go.
All right. But you were talking about driving through there and just being grounded, that positive memory that was triggered with you being there in the start of your adulthood. So how do you want to relate that back to spiritual journey, healing, and growth, the shifting of energies?
I was gonna say I got to drive through there and I got to be out on some land because I asked you about your travels and tapping in spiritually, right? So I got to be out on some land of Dr. Mudra Shakir. She's the occupational therapy instructor, one of them at Tuskegee, but she has some farmland out there in Tuskegee in the county, right? And we were out there on a farm tapping into nature. And so I was going to pull that back into what you were saying about how if you growing up in a city versus traveling to the country, right? A lot of times we travel to these cities and we travel to these retreats and these beach resorts, but we never go into like the woods or to nature and just be out there, right? Because it's like going backwards. And so sometimes it's good to take a trip backwards because now you can take a trip into yourself, right? And so the energy that I felt from that was a type of energy that's stabilizing for the rest of life, right? Because I went there, I was drawn there for a purpose. So I'm at this point in my life, I understand the energy now. I was drawn to Tuskegee to attend the school for a purpose. And that purpose led me back to Tuskegee almost 20 years later, right? Because that was actually 2004, no, 24 years later. Because we was 99, right? Yeah, about 99. But the purpose part of it is to tap back into the energies of what's going on and be able to. I've asked you these questions about changing energies and if one group can change the energy and change the outcome. So it was tapping back into that and knowing that, having that faith the size of a mustard seed, right, about situations, having that peace beyond all understanding. So it was really a moment where all of that came to a head and, grounding, right? Seeing the beauty of Tuskegee, like campus is actually really, really pretty, like really
So
pretty, right?
I have a question because we were talking about memory and triggering. Did that memory triggering on your journey bringing you back? Did it recharge you to go forward differently? Was it like a reset or a recharge to go, okay, I know my purpose again. I got to go here. Because sometimes I feel like we need that grounding in energy, or we need a reset. Okay, I need to reset my energy. I need to reground and refocus. Do you feel like being there did that for you? Did it shift? Because we were talking about shifting energies as well. So I feel like that was a good example to say your energy was shifted and refocused and regrounded because again, you might have got somebody else's energy came off and threw you off or whatever. But
No,
I just wanted to ask this since you were talking about going back and
it was a great question and it was a great segue and it was a great memory jogger, right? Excuse me. Yeah, it definitely was a reset. And so it was a reset. Let me show you how it was a reset because we were talking about that peace beyond all understanding, right? I had an emergency on the way back. So I had been driving my car for hours. Like I drove down 5 hours to Atlanta, then I drove around Atlanta, and then I drove with the 3 hours, 2.5, 3 hours over to Tuskegee, and then Tuskegee I was driving around, and then I was driving hours, putting hours and long miles on my car. So I was coming home through Alabama, back up into Tennessee, and saw some smoke. Didn't think it was smoke coming from my car, but then it turns out the guy pulled up beside me and was like, "Hey, you smoking pretty bad." And I was like, "Okay." So I jumped out of the car. I had both. So I jumped out of the car, pulled the car over, jumped out of the car. Look, smoke. It was actually a fire. So my car was actually on fire, right? So
Oh,
first thing was get the baby out of the car. Get the baby out of the car, moving. So got her out of the car, and then instead of panic, what came over me was just handle the situation, right? There was this peace beyond all understanding that
in a
it
moment
just
that you probably should have been like, oh my God, I need to panic or do whatever. Right.
right. And then it was just like, just handle it, right? And I'm saying this was a legitimate fire under my hood, right? It was a legitimate fire, but it was just like peace, just handle it. And I handled it. I didn't have a fire extinguisher, but I figured a trucker might have one, somebody driving by might have one. So and what happens with a lot of people is people are afraid to ask people, right? And
Right.
so I'm trying to save my vehicle. I'm trying to save my baby. I don't want nothing to happen. Let me ask. So I had the baby standing aside. A lady pulled off. A lady saw me jump out the car. She pulled off. Bo went with her. Bo didn't have any problem. The crazy thing is Bo didn't have any problem with going with her. Like Bo was just like cool.
That's that all that energy you
Right.
was generating to you.
Right. And so it was like, okay. Another family got pulled off. He was like, "Yeah, let me help you." We went. Fat this big old trucker, custom trucker. He had a custom truck. Big old white dude. He might have been a skinhead. I don't know, but he looked like he might be racist, right? But he was just like, "Oh yeah, I got one." And he got out of his truck. He pulled his truck up there, got out, used it. The car didn't catch on fire because usually cars, once a fire starts, they just up like that because all the flammable things in cars. He was able to get out, do his thing, put the fire out, check the car. We couldn't figure out where the fire came from, right? Turn the car on, let the car sit there and cool down for a minute. Turn the car on, car was running fine, didn't do anything. So much so as to where, Birmingham to Nashville is 2.5 hours. Nashville home is 45 minutes. So I had just gotten outside of Birmingham, so it's basically still a 3 hour trip. I went ahead and finished the trip. And I'm home now. The car hasn't had any problem. We put it up on the rack, looked at it, tried to figure out where the fire came from. We don't know. Um,
It
they'll
might have
find it
been
maybe when they
climate
crack it.
change.
But what's funny is that's what my nephew said. My nephew said, "Oh, it was hot. There might have been something they got under there and just caught on
Climate.
fire." Once you put it out, it just was. That's what it was, right? You put out the
Right.
fire.
But you know what you just gave an example of, and then
Hmm.
we're gonna wrap up.
Hmm.
When you started the segment off and you were asking me, did I believe that we had to be physically connected to align energies?
Hmm.
That was an example of you not physically being connected to those people, but you all's energy aligned for the
Hmm.
positive outcome.
No, I
Like
say,
you,
and we talk.
like you said, the lady didn't know your kid from Adam, and the fact that she felt comfortable enough, because we know our kids said
Hmm.
her energy
Hmm.
allowed her to feel comfortable. Let me go stand over here with this lady
Hmm.
and till my dad gets this taken care of.
Hmm.
I don't care what nobody say. Kids have the best discernment of energies and people than anybody.
Right.
And that's why I was saying before, I feel like that's my God-given purpose. I felt like he allowed me to keep that
Hmm.
beyond my kid phase.
Hmm. Hmm.
Whereas, as most kids get older, they don't get to keep that or they don't tap into it as much to keep it sharpened, to keep that skill of understanding and interpreting and feeling those energy shifts. But the fact that she was able to know that lady's energy to say, okay, it's safe enough for me to go over here while this is taken care of. That was the alignment of energies that didn't have to physically touch and come to the consensus that you don't know where that lady was going, where that trucker was going, what they had on their agenda. And that's when people be talking about faith. That's the spirituality of the energy aligning so that all the things that you needed to do, the right people in the right places at the right time, all of that also factors into peace that surpasses all understanding.
Ashe, preach, girl.
Woo. I know
That
I
peace.
ain't look, the deacons in my family and pastors will be proud, wouldn't they?
But yeah, it's that peace beyond all understanding. I get it. I get it. That's where I encourage people to get to. And it's a for me, it's a hard place to get to. But as I'm getting there, I'm seeing like the beauty of more and more things, right? And the beauty of how just being peace, being peace, because you got to be it, right? Being peace uh helps you in those types of situations because yeah, I could have been frantic and panicking and oh my God, what's gonna happen? And the car would have burned on down, but because that and that's what people say, that spirit, because the Lord spoke to me at that point in time, it was just like
Right.
but that
Hey,
was
that's
also
a real thing. That's a real thing.
and I was tapping into those energies, that energy that I felt, that grounded energy when I went through Tuskegee, the campus, and the grounded energy that I felt when I was in Tuskegee on the land, and the grounded energy that I felt in Atlanta, and all of that. Everything happened. It all got in line, like you said, all that alignment for that very moment, and for me to get there and go, you know what? Let me just handle the situation. And it handled it, and it was cool, right?
Yes.
Handled it, and it was cool. And so, yeah, I appreciate you doing this podcast and answering my questions. And I appreciate all of you for tuning in. Yeah, this has been amazing. What, two-part discussion?
Yeah, two-part discussion. So y'all know what to do. Tap into your energy and your spiritual healing and growth and your overall well-being and growth. Because it is a beautiful thing. When you get there, it's nothing like it. Can't nobody take it from you. So we want to say until next time, don't forget to like, subscribe, share, comment, give us some feedback, give us some topics you want us to tackle. And if you want to be a guest, by all means, send us a message. We'll get you on with, do interviews for a good discussion.
Sure
all
will.
of that.
All right. Yes,
See
yes,
y'all
yes.
later.
Peace.